Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, let's continue with the next verse. And where do we stop? Verse 59. So verse 59 we said Brahman pervades all transactions. So everything you ever do, all actions, all sense organs, every part of your human aspect, your components that make you the individual up, other people you look at, all that is here is one Brahman. And now the verse then continues and says, verse 60, Brahman is beyond all attributes. Ananu asthulam akhrasvam adirgham ajam avyayam arupa gunavarna akyam tad brahma iti avadharayet. So it says neither small nor big, nor short nor long. So in the previous verse we stated that all that is here is Brahman, but now that very Brahman is beyond all attributes. And this is important because if we start to sort of see everything as Brahman, then we start to impute all attributes on Brahman. But through a Satya-Mithya relationship, we already recognize that, for example, the atom is free of the attributes of the molecules, and the molecules are free of the attributes of the minerals, and the minerals are free of the attributes of the clay, and the clay is free of the attributes of the pot. So this means this, when it's a Satya-Mithya relationship, the substance is never contaminated by the name and form which belongs at the level of Mithya. So this Mithya can break, it can shatter into 1,000 different pieces, but the substance remain through and through exactly the same as it did while the name and form was called pot. Now it's called whatever, figurine or person or tree, but it is the exact same substance. So it says that this Brahman therefore is this substance, and if it's the substance or the content of all things, then think about what is this verse saying, because what does our mind want to do? The same thing it's been doing for a long time, always imputing some kind of a imagination onto the substance, even if we're told it is all things, it is all that is. Then we in one case make Brahman like the submarine, for example, as Swami Dayananda used to call it. We make it a submarine somewhere deep down that we have to dig deep and extract this awareness, right? And it has to kind of percolate throughout our personality. So we go into a meditation and we're like looking very, very, very deeply, and we're like, okay, let me just get in touch with it. Yeah, I've almost found it. I'm almost found it. I'm almost found it. But we said that awareness is the revealer of all attempts, of all experiences, of all phenomena, of all frustrations, of all successes. So on one hand, we make it the Zeppelin. In one case, we make it the submarine. On the other case, we make it like, a big, a hot air balloon, or, a Zeppelin. A Zeppelin, which is, maybe I call it a hot air balloon. And so now I'm this like overseer Drik, right? Who's like looking down on everything, including this person called Andre. I'm looking down how he's now talking. And so we kind of park ourselves into some imagination, and then we try to, have this sense of pride, like I'm looking down on everyone, I'm above Ishwar, I'm above the whole world. See, this is all immaturities of the mind, trying to find some way to turn Brahman into what it's not. So therefore it says Brahman is beyond all attributes. What kind of attributes it says? It is neither small nor big, because the Shastra knows the mind is going to want to turn it into something small or medium-sized or big. Therefore it says, it is neither the smallest of the smallest, nor the biggest of the biggest, but the substance of the small and the big. So this means that there will never be a time when awareness will, be some big thing or some small thing, some very kind of tiny thing that I will find, nor some major, vast experience that I will find. It will neither be short nor long. It is neither short nor long. Think about this. That means I can't give Brahman attributes of size. That means I can't say it is, now I used to feel, this little individual. Now I feel a lot more expansive, like outwards. I'm now much longer, much vaster. Again, any experience, no matter what it is, always belongs at the level of the 5 koshas. Every single time. Awareness is the revealer of experiences, revealer of attributes, content or the substance of attributes. And we said that wherever there is an attribute, which is mithya, that's exactly where you will find satyam. So now how can this spot possibly look for the substance? How can it look? Just the fact of looking implies it is not here. The entire attempt of looking is pervaded by the clay. The very thing it's looking at is pervaded by the clay. The very thought is pervaded by the clay. The very object it's looking is pervaded by the clay. We said Brahman awareness is the jnata, the knower, or the I sense, or the ahamkara, or the pramata, or the reflected consciousness, or the doer, the karta, or the bhokta, the enjoyer. It is not only the content or the substance of that, the so-called drik, as they like to say, the witness, let me witness my thoughts. Awareness is the content or the substance of that. It is also the substance of the very thought it's having about itself. Oh, I am like this, I am powerful, I am intelligent, I am smart. The smart, the intelligent, this and that are thoughts. It's also the substance of the thoughts. It is also the substance of opening its eyes and looking at an object. The very object it sees is also Brahman. So just to say like this, hey, I am Brahman, you know that? I am Brahman. Can you hear me? I am Brahman. I'm totally ignoring you right now. I'm just using you to hear my words. What am I now looking at with my open eyes? I am Brahman. I'm looking at none other than Brahman. So how can I discard you while co-opting to be Brahman over here? Let's not forget this. When we say Aham Brahmanasmi, with our ears, what are we hearing? With our eyes, what are we seeing? Let's not exclude that. You cannot say that space is only isolated here. I am the space. I am the space. Space is all pervasive. And when we say Aham Brahmanasmi, I am Brahman, I am awareness. Recognize that awareness that you speak of is the very awareness that is illumining the listener's mind, who is listening, and because of which the listener's mind is having an experience about me saying to them, I am Brahman. It illumines the experience from their standpoint. It illumines the experience from my standpoint. It is the revealer of all experiences, all phenomena, all thoughts, all emotions, all doubts, all memories, all recallings, all concerns, all fears. It also says Brahman is without birth or change, which means without birth or change. There will never be a time when awareness will be born for me or for you. Never. It has to thus be already right here, right now. It is therefore not an experience, because only an experience has birth. It is born. And therefore it dies. But what was there before the experience? The revealer of absence of experience. Okay? Then free from color, attributes, positions, and name. Okay, let me involve you a little bit. Free from color, What do you think this means? Free from color. Awareness is free from color.
Not tainted by the upadhis.
Yeah, so it's not taken for some kind of an upadhi. Maybe in some so-called spiritual experiences, they say when you see the white light in your third eye, because I was in Kriya Yoga, that's what they want you to see. Literally, they want to see the light in the third eye here. That is God. It's white. Why not blue? Yeah. Doesn't matter what color it is, it's still an attribute. Free from attributes. Free from position. How about that one? Free from position. What does this mean for you?
You cannot localize it.
You cannot localize it. That's brilliant. What else? Free from position. Are you going to find it now suddenly in your heart? Let me go into my heart. Maybe it's in some place in the brain. There was an article written a couple of years ago. I saved it on my computer, which was by a Harvard professor. And he said that we are very close to locating a region in the brain which is responsible for hosting our consciousness. We're getting close. I said this already in class, but reminding you now. This is how, if I don't have the pramana, how I turn Brahman into an attribute. And it says here, Brahman is free from attributes. See, no matter how much sophisticated our instruments are, they're never going to get to the final substance without the pramana. That's why it's called an independent pramana. Now, you try to show this independent pramana to them, they're probably not going to take interest. It's amazing. There are thousands and thousands of research papers out there, uploaded every day, published, research into consciousness. Right now, as we speak, it's being done by authoritative figures as we speak. And a simple verse here says, awareness is free of attributes. Therefore, you will never find it. It is beyond research. It's beyond perception. It's beyond inference. It's beyond postulation. And yet the whole life goes into postulating, inferring, perceiving. That's why you need a pramana. And it is free of name. Free of name. What does this mean? It's free of name.
Even the word Brahman is not Brahman.
Yeah. We have to give it some name. You see, even the word awareness, Brahman, Prajnanam, Brahma, consciousness is Brahman. Now what is consciousness? It's just another name. But we have to use names because that's the only way that we relate to things, to what is.
Only then it can be conveyed.
Only then it can be conveyed. That's why we don't have this whole, what do they have in the spiritual world? Convey wisdom through silence, through silent teachings. How do I prove that? Except through a placebo effect. Let me just stay and sit with you. And I want to believe it. Look at this. That's why I'm sitting with you. If I wasn't, believing it, I would not sit with a silent teacher. So obviously just to sit with a silent teacher, I have to believe that it's effective. To believe that it's effective, it's going to induce a placebo effect, just like giving a pill to somebody. When I sit down, I will have an experience, guaranteed. And then I will walk away stating how I received the teaching from the teacher in silence. And then a community will start around that, perhaps, as it always has. That means I can be silent for as long as I want. It's not going to remove ignorance, because ignorance is removed by opposition, knowledge. Knowledge is transferred through words. We call it Shabda Pramana, not through silence. Silence just makes me feel like I've solved the problem, but it hasn't solved anything at all. Allows it to live and dwell in there safely. Just be silent. Don't talk for a year. Hello, how are you? Paper. I don't talk for a year. I saw this in Rishikesh. There's a practice. It has its place. Nothing wrong or right about it, but you can see how people have different things they need to come closer to Bhagavan. A little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. So they're all just provisional labels, Brahman. Provisional label. See, so get not attached to labels. Let's not get attached to labels. But what is this Maya, Ishvara, Brahman, Jiva? They're just labels. Maybe we'll rename Brahman to Kukukaka. Let's attain Kukukaka. Ah, Kukukaka. Wow. And now the whole culture starts to say Kukukaka. It becomes a big thing, and it triggers so much reverence for Kukukaka. We're now going and praying for Kukukaka. We're having seminars on Kukukaka and writing books on Kukukaka. Building temples called the Temple of Kukukaka. So once upon a time, these words were ridiculous. Even the word Brahman was ridiculous. And then it just got standardized slowly, slowly. And now it's like, yeah, Brahman, whoa, big word. Let's not get attached to names. Let's not get attached to pot. You can call this whatever you want. Zingashe. You see, and now it triggers something totally different. But when you say pot, oh, pot, yeah, pot. Therefore, names and forms are also, Brahman is free of names and forms. Okay. Verse 61. Brahman is the source of all light. Yad bhasa bhasyate arkadi bhasyaihi yat tu na bhasyate. Yena sarvamidam bhati tad brahma iti avadharayet. That by which all this shines. So the sun illumines objects. But does the sun illumine Brahman? No. Because Brahman is not an object. Brahman is that because of which the sun is, because of which the hydrogen is, helium is, nuclear fission is, heat generated by the sun is, solar flares are. It is the substance of the sun. So the sun is nothing but knowledge and power, intelligence, being organized and reshuffled in a form of 5 elements. 5 elements are reorganized and reshuffled to produce the periodic table of elements. Periodic table of elements, 2 of them, hydrogen and helium, are constantly fusing together. In fact, hydrogen is fusing, the protons are fusing together to form helium. And that creates energy, and you times that by trillions of times per second, it creates huge amounts of heat. And that heat is also knowledge and power. And knowledge and power resolves into none other than the final substance without which it has no existence, because knowledge and power is, intelligence is, which is Brahman, existence awareness. Again, how do we know that intelligence, how do we show that intelligence resolves into awareness? Because you can just use a simple example, your own thought, which is an intelligently put together thought, an intelligence of itself. It cannot think without the presence of a conscious being. So intelligence cannot work outside consciousness. It has to be infused with consciousness so the intelligence can put together. So in that same way, the total consciousness, the total intelligence puts together this entire universe as is doing right now, not once upon a time. It's doing it right now. Only in the presence of one conscious being, one self. That self you are, which is self-revealing and self-illuminous, self-luminous. Swataha siddha swayam prakasha in Sanskrit, self-revealing. As I said, it is effortless. That is the final reality. That which is most effortless, most ever true, ever available, never not available, always revealing the various conditions of your body and mind, various conditions of your life. I am, I am, I am. That in whose presence all 3 states take place. The waker doesn't know about the dreamer. Do you know about the waker in the dream state? No. No clue about the waking state in the dream state. And right now I can speak about the dream state, but is it really the dream state? No. So whatever I say about the dream state is not the dream state. It's only just ideas. But when there is a dream state, then it's really the dream state. In that sense, there is no waking state at all. In the deep sleep state, there's no sense of waking state nor dream state at all. And in that deep sleep, I am there. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to sleep. You will be fearful of going out of existence if you recognized that in deep sleep you were not there. Just the fact that we all jump gladly, let's go to sleep. After all things are said and done, after the person has had all their fun and parties, what do they say end of the day? End of the day, I just want to go to sleep. So even after 5 hours of bliss on their drugs, they say, I want to go to sleep. I want the subject and the object to be resolved. I know that I'm not going to go out of existence. That's why I want to go to sleep. I want to come back to who I am, the most pleasant state of all. Therefore, even sun is a manifestation of all knowledge and power, and knowledge and power has its being in Brahman. So that's why we say Brahman is the light of all lights. It is even the light of this light. Photons, it's just photons. It is the content of this light too. Verse 62. Brahman illumines the universe. Swayam antarbahihi vyapya bhasayan akhilam jagat. Brahma prakashate vahni pratapta yasa pindavat. So this is using a prakriya called Anonya Atyasa. Anonya Atyasa, which means mutual superimposition. Okay? So it's using an iron ball and fire. Okay. So when you have an iron ball, which is by default, suppose it's cold and it's well rounded, and then when you place it in the proximity of fire, now it's no longer cold, it is hot and it is shiny. So on its own, it doesn't have a shine. In the proximity of the fire, it has a shine. So let's do a little analysis of this. Suppose we take iron ball. Okay, iron ball, and its default attributes are what? Heavy, round, solid, mass, you can say mass, and weight. And we'll say non-shiny, and we'll say cold, like average temperature. It depends on what planet you're on. If you're on Mercury, then it will be different. So when it's in proximity of the fire, now the iron ball, which one do we cancel out? We cancel out cold. We cancel out non-shiny. So now the iron ball becomes shiny and hot. Okay, so this means it's called mutual superimposition. So the fire has affected the iron ball indirectly, and the iron ball, we'll see what happens when I reverse the relationship. And then we've got, okay, so let's equate this to the body. We'll take a body here, because the body is like an iron ball, right? It's got these attributes. Body. Maybe one more attribute, we'll say insentient. Insentient. It's got heaviness, it's got shape. Body has shape. And yeah, so that's good. And then it's in the proximity of, quote, proximity, pervaded by consciousness. And what happens to the body? insentiency. It becomes, so the in is cancelled out, the shape remains the same, and so sentient, and we could say alive. Alive and dynamic. Alive, dynamic, and conscious. Aware. Aware. In the presence of consciousness. Now let's reverse this relationship. If you're still writing down. Can I erase? Not yet. Okay, let's reverse the relationship and look at it from the standpoint of fire. So fire has no mass nor weight. It is what else? Hot, shiny, moves. I think that's enough. Now you put iron ball and this fire, what kind of attribute it as though gains? Iron ball, right? It becomes now heavy. Heavy. It gains mass. What else? Shiny. Weight. Heavy, mass, weight. So now the shiny ball has a big... Yeah, it's shiny now, right? No one said shiny. Someone said shiny. So shiny. The fire has a shape, and the fire has size and weight and mass. Hot, yeah, excellent, hot. It's still hot. So all of the original attributes are there of the fire, right? All the original qualities of fire are there, but also it's been mixed up with qualities of the iron ball. Qualities have been mixed up. Now let's take this to awareness. So we will say it's attributeless. Attributeless. It is one, and it is all pervasive. All pervasive. Now, when awareness is in proximity of the body, pervading the body, so I'm going to say here body. What does awareness as though gain? Attributes. Attributes. Such as?
Color, shape.
Size of the body, eye color, smart, intelligent, smart, or dull, and becomes limited, as though limited. So this is called anonyatyasa, mutual superimposition. So now why do we have such a big hard time figuring out who we are? Because of this. Because it's such an intimate mixture that now when you say I am, which is awareness, there's something about you that is chasing for spirituality because you know I am one. There's only one of me. I am attributeless. I am all pervasive. That's why you hear these words in the spiritual world. But then there's a confusion, and you operate as though you got attributes, as though you got size, you're small, you're sharp, you're dull, and so we have this big confusion. This is why Arjuna asked, "Oh Lord Krishna, give me that knowledge which will solve, number one, my situational problems." Good question. And number two, which will give me final fulfillment, because I am confused. What is to be done here? Who am I? Am I awareness, or am I that which awareness has become as though completely mixed up with? The point is, why does the mix-up happen? because one of them has heaviness, mass, and weight, the other one is attributeless, come together, and now I am confused, and that confusion leads to the spiritual journey, and the spiritual journey tries to eliminate or make your size bigger. Make your, remove the dullness. Let me remove your dullness. Let me make your size bigger. What's this? What does it say? Limited. Let me make you limitless. I don't know how. Maybe believe, you're limitless, or give you some special experience of limitlessness. Totally leaving out this. So even the guru is kind of operating from the standpoint of an anyonya atyasa. Therefore, when we bring it out through mere logic by pramana, and you just lay it out like this, you go, okay, now having understood that I'm awareness, is this going to go away? What's the only shift?
Understanding, perception.
Cognitive shift there is, but it still remains the same because it is sopadikatyasa. When I recognize that the truth of this body and this mind is awareness, nothing changes because it is not my design. It's just reducible. When I understand this pot reduces to the clay, the pot remains exactly the same. So there's no experiential change. I just cognitively recognize, hey, there is a so-called mutual mix-up, but it's no longer a mix-up because I have recognized what belongs where. This is why we keep saying Vedanta, you leave things alone. Just put things in the right place. That's why it's sopadikatyasa. Or should we say, that is why it is Vastu Tantra. Vastu Tantra, I just need to align my mind to what is. Okay, body is body, size is size, mind is mind, awareness is awareness. Both of them are available to me right now. I leave it alone and I live freely. Until one day this gets cancelled out completely, which is called Videha Mukti. Completely. Once and for all. For now, you just have to bear this for a little bit longer. So we leave this alone. There is this apparent mutual mix-up, just like with this nice, little crystal. But I don't have to eliminate the greenness or whatever color it's going to show me because I didn't create the red, nor the yellow, nor the blue. I leave it alone. Just cognitively understand the fact that I, the crystal, can be free to show another color means I was never contaminated by the previous color. Otherwise, you would have red on top of the blue, blue on top of the red, and so on. Okay, and then verse 63. Nothing exists apart from Brahman. Jagat vilakshanam Brahma Brahmanaha anyat na kinchana Brahma anyat bhati chet mithya yatha maru marichika. If anything other than Brahman appears to exist in your understanding, it is like the mirage. The mirage is your own creation in this example. It is your own subjective projection. It is not there. So it says here, there exists nothing whatsoever that is not Brahman. So this means that, how do we get born? We born are with eyes. We open our eyes and our eyes are programmed to see forms. Everyone's eyes are programmed to see forms, ears are programmed to see sounds. That is simple. But how many more realities are there according to Vedanta, which we don't see and which we need a pramana to quote see, to recognize? There is Ishvara and Brahman. So this means that even though all forms that I see in actuality are pervaded and nothing but intelligence, are a manifestation of intelligent putting together of intelligence, given the appearance of a form. So the form that I'm interacting with is only ever intelligence, has no reality without intelligence. Because I don't know that, that form becomes an upadhi for me. And when something becomes an upadi for me, what does that mean?
It's mithya.
It becomes an upadi. That means it's taken as real. When a form is taken as real, an upadi, because remember, once you recognize the truth that upadi is mithya, it's no longer an upadi. It's just a manifestation of Brahman. So when the form is an upadi for me, what do you do then? You operate according to what you see. You attribute value onto the object. It becomes the means to life, a means to an end. It becomes the end of itself, actually, not the means to an end. So this means the upadi becomes something that I take for real. Why? Because I failed to recognize intelligence, what it really is. Because I failed to recognize intelligence, what have you simultaneously failed to recognize? Awareness. Because the truth of intelligence is awareness. To misapprehend the presence of intelligence is to simultaneously misapprehend the final substance, yourself. That is why there is no Brahman without Ishvara. Think about this. Because how can you go from a form to formless just like that? How am I going to possibly understand that this is awareness? How will I understand that without doing a Satya Mithya analysis? How? The only way is to claim it. But to claim it is not to understand it. To claim it, even if I claim it and it's true, is it really true if I don't understand it? You see this? So you can have two people claiming the same thing. It is awareness. Person number two, it is awareness. They are both factually right. But from the person who doesn't understand how it is awareness, from their standpoint, they're factually right. But from your standpoint, their so-called fact is ignorance. It's not a fact at all. Just to claim it is not true, even if you claim it's true. It's not true unless I understand how it is true. So what the verse shows us is that I open my eyes and I see forms. And cognitively, you recognize wherever there is a form, that's exactly where intelligence is. Where intelligence is, that's exactly where awareness is. Therefore, do forms ever keep you away from the final reality? Excellent. This is brilliant understanding. Do thoughts, which are nothing but forms, ever keep you from final reality? No, because everything is already the final reality. Therefore, you will never be outside of Brahman, never be outside of awareness. It's impossible. That notion has to go. And that's what I meant by owning up that this is how it is. Telling my mind once in a while, hey mind, this is a fact. Your job is to align to the facts rather than to kind of doubt it. You have doubted this enough, now come to the point and just own up, this is how it is. Now, of course, if you could just own up, everyone would have done it by now. That's why we say you need Ishvara's grace. So it's not a matter of just owning up, but it's part of it. Therefore, we don't have to negate forms to arrive to Ishvara nor Brahman. Wherever there's a form, that's where Ishvara is. Which form would you like to now give me an example for? What's the common form you see in your life?
Human.
Huh? Human form. Wherever there is a human form, that's where intelligence is, and that's where Brahman is. What other forms do we often see? Tree. Tree. I appreciate the tree for what it is. I sit under the tree. I don't need to philosophize about the tree. I pick the tree's apples, bite into the apple. Don't worry, you're not going to get punished. You put it into the apple. These are nice stories, and you enjoy the tree for what it is. But you also, once in a while, bring this teaching. Wherever there's an apple that I'm biting into, that's where Ishvara is. That's why we pray. To recognize this is an appearance of God before my eyes. Where God is, that's where I am. Our truth is one. Therefore, we reconcile things through cognitive knowledge. Just like a scientist knows that this world is atoms, but continues to see forms, does the scientist have to negate forms to see atoms? Not at all. Because I don't see the atoms, does it mean the atoms are not there? No. So this means as a scientist, they can appreciate the world as atoms, even though they don't see the atoms, but they know cognitively their atoms are there. Now look at this. If the scientist appreciates cognitively that atoms are there, and a Vedantin appreciates cognitively that all that is here is Brahman, then what's the difference? If it's both cognitive understanding. What's the difference? There is a difference. Think about it carefully.
It's a different instrument. One uses a microscope
Okay,
to see it.
okay.
We use Vedanta.
Pramana. But suppose after you've used the microscope and you now are totally convinced it is atoms, the world is atoms.
The atoms is
Name
limited.
and form.
There is limited.
Still they are at the
Limited.
mid-level.
Who is limited?
Atom.
Atom is limited, good. There's another bigger difference. Think of that difference from the standpoint of the scientist. The scientist, huh?
The scientist doesn't bring in awareness.
Good.
They haven't reached the final block yet.
Yeah. So the scientist has excluded himself from the analysis. The scientist has, like the 10th man story, right? Cross the river, whatever that story is, right? So the atom has not, the fact that all that is here are atoms has not transformed me, the observer of that fact, the knower of that fact. It left the knower intact. Both cognitive knowledge, whereas Vedantic cognitive knowledge, the very inquirer, the very thinker, the very person who says all that is here is Brahman, who is that person? That person is also Brahman, has not been excluded from that statement. So when you say all that is here is Brahman, who is saying that statement?
Brahman is
No. When you say, okay, that's good, but let's step at a time. When you say all that is here is Brahman, what is making that statement? Body, mind. But what is the truth of that body, mind? Brahman. The body, mind said it. The truth of that body, mind is the very thing that they said. So both the subject and the object are included in the understanding. The science, only the object is included in the understanding. Subject remains untransformed.
Nice.
very good.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
Very, very, very nice.
Yeah. That's why you can have a scientist who spends 5 years learning so deeply about the world, but they walk away not so transformed, like the same person as before they went in. And then finally it says, if any other object appears to you, which is not Brahman to you, in other words, any object that appears to exist, and to you it's not Brahman, then you haven't captured Brahman. You haven't understood the pramana. You're still kind of superimposing this is something else. That's not possible anymore because pramana says wherever mithya is, that's where satyam is. Therefore, I can't be outside of this reality. Brahman is through and through all past, present, and future things. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.